So you said before that jiu-jitsu is simulated murder in swimwear. For context, what is the purpose of martial arts, in your opinion?
The purpose is different to the individual. So some people will use it as a form of self-defense. Some people will just use it as an alternative exercise because they don't want to lift heavy weights and put them back down. Martial arts were designed specifically so that people would have some kind of tool in their back pocket to defend themselves. And it wasn't necessarily thought of as anything other than, if I don't have a tool, what do I go to? And then in the early days, it was martial arts developed with weapons as well. In the common era, you don't need to know how to use a Chinese broadsword, a bow, staff, and nunchucks. You just don't have those things readily available. But you should still be able to understand how to use an improvised slashing weapon, a club weapon, your bare hands, because we, meaning humans, are the top of the food chain. And unfortunately, we're not worried about a large cat attack. We're not worried about, too many of the things that our predecessors worried about 20,000 years ago. We're dealing with people assaulting us. And so when we're trying to fight the apex predator of our time, human beings, learning to fight another human is important. But I think that martial arts can be for a variety of people and for a variety of reasons. So when my good friend Jeff Shaw and I started Bellingham BJJ on the West Coast, the phrase that Jeff came up with for opening the school was for everybody and everybody. Because I don't want to think of martial arts as being for the fit male 20-year-old. Martial art can be for anyone. But to be for anybody, the instructors have to be knowledgeable enough to make the moves work for a variety of body types and fulfill the needs of the people that are coming in. Case in point, if I have a middle-aged man and a middle-aged woman walk into the academy, and one of them was an athlete in their prior life, that person, regardless of the physical state they are currently in when they walk in, is just going to have an advantage. They knew how to move their body once. Learning to move it again shouldn't be too hard. Obviously, knocking the rust off and whatever they let their body get to at that point, notwithstanding, that will take some extra work too, but they at least know how to move their body. If someone has never learned how to move their body and then they come in and they're trying to learn martial arts, the great thing is it will teach them to. And that in and of itself can be value. But the person who has had some kind of aptitude for moving themselves, I don't care if it's soccer. It doesn't have to be anything crazier than you did a high school or middle school sport. They're going to have a small advantage. Obviously, the closer that that skill was to a martial art, let's say wrestling in high school, fencing, something where there's an opposing force that's giving you resistance back and you have to fight against that resistance, or you have to find angles and geometry to make your connections, they're going to have a higher capability towards going farther faster. It doesn't mean that somebody with no talent in another discipline can't come in and just immediately click to especially the martial arts that I am most known for, which are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, Sambo. But any martial art, people will come in from all walks of life and just pick it up, and that's great. But what is it to that person? And sometimes it's just stress relief, and that's great. Problem solving. You get to come in and you're given a scenario and you are told this is where the crux of the position is and these are the resistance points, and your objective is to get to here. Get there. And when they do it, they have a sense of accomplishment that they don't get in their mundial, Monday through Friday grind. And so if you can give that to somebody, that can be value. It didn't have to be, oh, you went to a tournament and won a $3 medal. That's not for everybody. Some people really want to get their hand raised because for them, that's great. They need that sense of accomplishment. We can build that too. But the competition side of things isn't the most important side of things. It's that I got you to do a complicated task against a resisting apex predator, humans. Feel accomplished. Feel accomplished. Because this and this, an opposable thumb and a really, really good brain make us dangerous. Now, you've probably seen the video of like the silverback gorilla just walking through high grass and there's a bunch of camera people. And then just the last camera person in the line, the gorilla grabs him casually by the ankle and drags him 20 feet without breaking stride. And you're like, oh, the power of gorillas. And yes, that is an impressive thing that we as just Homo sapiens don't have that kind of power. But I've seen some absolutely impressive things that humans are capable of. And it's not always the big Eddie Hall strongmen people of the world who are doing it. So a thought exercise that works well for the martial arts also works well within the gun community. And being based out of XCAL shooting sports and fitness, I think it's worth talking about the downstairs and upstairs for a second, because at our gym, we have fitness upstairs with our martial arts, but downstairs it's a shooting range. You should have at least a working knowledge of the most readily available lethal force that we know in our current society, which is firearms, and then the empty-handed and analogous components, which is hand-to-hand fighting. Well, if I were to ask you a thought exercise on how many firearms currently in the world are loaded, what's your guess?
I'm pretty sure you said this before. None of them.
All of them.
All of them, sorry.
If you treat them all as if they're loaded, you have a different level of respect for the firearm. If you treat it like a toy, you'll be like Luke Skywalker in episode 4 looking down the barrel of a lightsaber, right? So you want to make sure that you are not making some very egregious mismanagements of a weapon because you're treating it with a different level of respect. Now, what if I were to say every human being is capable of extreme and great violence? And all of a sudden, if you treat them as such, you'll move differently. The number of times that I'll watch people have a conversation with a complete stranger and their hands are in their pockets. And there's nothing wrong with just having your arms crossed or having a hand next to your face and think, oh, really? That's great. But at least my hand is covering my jugular, right? Like, oh, that's a fantastic story. I didn't pat you down. I don't know you. I don't want to get super close to where an engagement has to happen. And then also when you take into consideration that in the state of Virginia, we have a 21-foot rule, and that 21-foot rule is for a reason. If I have access to a firearm and I see somebody who's within 21 feet brandishing a bladed weapon and they start to come towards me, do I have the legal right to try and defend myself with my firearm against somebody who has a knife within 21 feet? And the answer is yes, because they can cover that distance in under a second and a half. And if that weapon gets to my neck, I'm done. So yes, I have access to lethal force in that situation. Somebody 50 feet away, they could wave their knife at me and call me any expletive they want. I am not in my legal right to shoot then.
Mm-hmm. And this is not legal advice. It's not. We're not lawyers, but
we are not lawyers, but that is the law. That is
just
the
saying,
law.
because some people will be like, hey, I heard this on the internet.
And yes, you should always look at the laws in your local governance and figure out like what works for me. But yes, the reason we have that here is because we understand that threat. I'm not saying other states have it wrong, but if you don't understand that somebody with a blade, it doesn't even matter if it's just a piece of glass that they picked up, that can be life-ending and it can happen real quick. So martial arts isn't a catch-all. It's not going to save you from every bad situation. But the gun and condom rule is I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And in that case, not knowing what to do when the situation goes south, and I have the access. We are not living in an era when some mystical guru of the martial arts is at the top of a mountain that I have to climb on my hands and knees to get to after days and days of arduous trekking. We have martial arts in every town all over the US for the most part, all across the globe. In this area, specifically the Mid-Atlantic, Northern Virginia, outside of the nation's capital, we have so much jiu-jitsu that if I took a Nerf football to the top of our building, threw it in any one direction, I'll hit a jiu-jitsu school. And yet, we still have people that don't train. Now, what if 1% of Loudoun County trained jiu-jitsu? 1%. How many people live in Loudoun County?
Like 300,000?
It's a little bit higher than that. It's like 380,000. Now, what if 1% trained? What if, yeah. What if 4,000 people were training on the regular? If 4,000 people were training on the regular in this area, how many gyms could that feed?
A lot.
Yeah, a ton. Even if your school just needed 100 students to make ends meet, great. Now we can have a bunch of schools all thriving in just Loudoun County. And we do, but we still don't even have 1% of the population training. So why is it that we can't get 1 out of 100 people to say, this is a skill you might need one day? And the answer is, we've become too civilized. Because we don't have violence rampant like it's the wild, wild west, we don't need it. But then when you hear about the unfortunate thing that happened last summer at the local 7-Eleven where a carjacking went horribly wrong and a poor lady lost her life because she was ran over by her own car during the carjacking, if she had just had enough wherewithal to say, get a frame in place and get away, that could have been the difference between her being here or not. And it's not something that is a secret. You know, those gurus on the mountaintop, they don't die with their secrets anymore. We are not in a situation where we have people that just keep a secret, give it to like their diehard student, or they die with their secrets. I tell my students all the time, it's only my move till you do it better. I'm going to show you everything I know how, and it is not me gatekeeping a cool move. Any one thing that could be effective in a fight, I want everyone to have. And if you never plan on fighting, all the better. I don't want you to plan to fight, because if you plan to fight, you'll find one. But if you're just saying, I want to be prepared for something that could happen, and along the way, I'm getting in better shape, I'm problem solving and doing some stress relief, and I'm getting this really good connection with my training partners and building a community, why can't that just be good enough? And in the background of your mind, think, oh yeah, and if I need it, I have it. And I think that's cool.
Yeah, there's not three major things, but 3 things that go into martial arts. There's the mental game, just having your head in the game and be able to say that it's not about someone else doing something wrong, it's you doing something wrong. And then there's the individuality, because it's not a team sport. It's not like if that person screwed up, that screwed up my game. I couldn't get the ball to the goal because that guy was somewhere else. Because once you're on the mat, it's you against one other person, and that person's not being obviously it's a friendly sport. It's not like you're trying to kill someone, but it's basically trying to kill someone. And then you have like the analogy that jiu-jitsu or martial arts in general is just a chess game. It's like 100% skill based, and it's 100% your ability to see the best possible move with what you have. And if someone plays a little bit better than you, then there's not, you can't blame them for not doing it properly. It's like the winner is the person who made the less mistakes than the loser.
I agree with that. I say it fairly regularly that the person who wins the world championships every year isn't always the most capable. I've watched some very, very talented people come up short. And the long and short of it is usually the same thing, which is somebody somewhere made a mistake, they overcorrected, and they lost the position or they lost the submission that they were going for. So the person who wins it every year is the person who makes the least mistakes.
And you did have that analogy about cars, about oversteering.
Yeah. Within the automotive world, when we're looking at statistics and metrics over car accidents, the craziest statistic is the fact that most accidents are caused by overcorrection. It doesn't matter if you were texting and driving. You look down, you look up, you overcorrect. Oh, there's a deer, overcorrect. Oh, there's ice, you're spinning, you overcorrect. It's that idea that in that moment, it doesn't take much manipulation of the wheel, but we overdo it because we have to compensate, or we think we do under the duress of the situation. Most people can't remain calm during crisis. So that's why it's imperative for people in this area to take their young fledgling drivers out in these bad conditions. Like tonight, we're expecting snow. If you have the snow day tomorrow, find an empty parking lot, go there with your crappiest car and get your kid behind the wheel and put them through the rigors of learning to lose control of the vehicle. People in the Northeast, where I came up, we did that all the time as kids. So that way, when you get on the road, you see less cars in the ditches. For whatever reason, there will be a dusting of snow in Northern Virginia. And I hate to say this because someone's going to tragically be a statistic tomorrow, but they just don't have the skills. And this goes back to what we said before. You'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. It doesn't matter whether it's martial arts or preparing to drive your vehicle in inclement weather conditions. One of my favorite writers, Chuck Palahniuk, he wrote the book Fight Club, and he wrote a bunch of other books.
The one the movie is based off of?
Correct.
Okay.
And one of my favorite books of his is the book Rant. And in it, he says, it's incredible that we have so much imagination in this world, and yet we have people who still think 2 yellow lines mean safety. That is the worst part of your imagination. Don't think that that means safety. Just know that that is an arbitrary thing saying we have a social agreement that you stay on your side and I stay on my side. And all it takes is someone to have a bad day and move their steering wheel 1 inch to the left. And we have to be aware of this. And yet we have these autonomous driving vehicles. Yeah, what's the worst that can happen? It's like, no. It's not about the vehicle driving for me. It's about me having ownership of the reactions to the other drivers on the road. I know that these vehicles can drive in a straight line. I'm worried about you driving in a straight line. And that's why my hands are going to stay on the wheel, because that's where the control comes in. And people are just giving away these controls to these comforts in our common era, because it's like we have so much safety now. And we think that that means we are actually safe. We have safeguards, but that doesn't actually mean safety.
It's like security cameras. It's just the illusion of safety. Like, what's a security camera going to do? Prevent someone from pulling out a firearm? It's just going to record the fact that someone pulled out a firearm, and then if you're still alive, and your arm is crippled, you all paralyzed and everything, the camera's just like, yep, that happened.
Yeah, congrats. Now we just have we have something for court. That's it. It's not helping you in the moment.